Yeah. For some of these families,
And take your kayaks. President Carr, it's time.
Like to call to order Rapid City Area Schools Board of Education regular meeting. Shirley, can we have a roll call, please?
Troy Carr,
Here.
Jamie Clapham. Here. Christine Stephenson.
Here.
Deb Baker.
Here.
Kate Thomas. Here. And Michael Berkland.
Here. At this
Walt
time-
Swan is absent with notice.
Thank you. This time we'll have our invocation.
Before I pray, I just wanted to say on behalf of the community, thank you. Thank you to each one of you members for what you do and the sacrifice you make for our children's education. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, we are so grateful for these members, this president, these members, this superintendent and CFO and this whole bunch, Lord. We're so grateful for their sacrifice and the difficult work they do to provide quality education. Lord, I pray that each school board member tonight and staff, Lord, would feel the presence of God, that they would have your solutions in their own personal lives and your presence there, and that they would feel peace of God tonight and in the busyness of the day, and in this meeting, that Lord, we would have wisdom and discernment to overcome any challenges and to, Lord, walk just through this meeting and be blessed as you just help us make good decisions. I pray for the blessing of God over it all and everyone recognized here tonight. Lord, bless each one and bless our wonderful students and our amazing teachers and staff and principals, Lord. Blessings from the Lord tonight over this place. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. At this time, let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I will entertain a motion for the approval of the proposed agenda. Second. Deb and Michael.
Yes.
And excuse me for using your first names. My brain can't translate to using your last name so that quick. Okay, we have a first motion and seconded. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed say no. Okay. Agenda carries. This time, Superintendent Swaggarts.
It's time for the
Yeah.
success, my favorite part of every board meeting. Tonight we have three things that we're recognizing, all our successes of the district. The first one is Jordan Bauer. He is currently the Central High School Activities Director. He was recently elected president of the State Activity Directors Association for the 23-24 school year by fellow AD colleagues across the state. The organization is the South Dakota Interscholastic Athletic Administrators Association, and Jordan was supposed to be here, but as all of us know, kids sometimes have different ideas, so he is home with a sick kiddo. The second huge cause for celebration, and I'm so excited that they agreed to come and share information with us tonight, is Horace Mann Elementary Lighthouse Certification. Principal Kelly Gorman sent this information to give you a bit of background. Leader in Me, LIM, is an evidence-based comprehensive school improvement model that empowers students with the leadership and life skills they need to thrive. Horace Mann started this journey approximately 5 years ago. The LIM, Leader in Me, framework focuses on one of the most important concepts, paradigms. Every child has unique strengths and talents that they can use to lead. Staff and students alike learn and practice the 7, now 8, habits of highly effective people developed by researcher Stephen Covey. These habits are most known in the business world, where his work initially began. A principal, Muriel Summers, attended Dr. Stephen Covey's 7 Habits training years back. While at the training, she began to ponder whether the 7 habits could be taught and practiced with 5 to 11-year-olds. While at the training, she asked Dr. Stephen Covey if he thought it would be possible, and the following year, Leader in Me was born. There are now over 7,000 schools across the world who implement the comprehensive framework, with only a small percentage earning Lighthouse certification. Leader in Me schools work towards earning Lighthouse certification by working with a coach through the Leader in Me school improvement process. Franklin Covey Education established a Lighthouse rubric, which was attached to this, but I don't have it to show you, so never mind, to determine the effectiveness in the areas of teaching leadership principles, creating a strong culture, and aligning academic systems that support successes for all. Horace Mann documented evidence using an evidence binder. Again, this is fantastic. Horace Mann is proud to be one of the approximately 650 schools worldwide who have earned Lighthouse certification. And they are looking forward to continuing this ongoing journey. And if you haven't had a chance to visit Horace Mann, you go there. They have leaders that will give you tours. It's really incredible. I went to their leadership day, Leader in Me day last year. All the students talking about the 7 habits. It is incredible to see it in motion, all of this work that they are doing. I think it's making an incredible difference for students. And this is starting in kindergarten and going through fifth grade. So we would like to ask the Horace Mann team to come up here.
And we have two leaders here too that are, their mom, Emily, works at our school. And we have Olivia and Paisley, and they're both leaders at our school as well. So.
Fantastic. We need a picture. Come on. Kelly, lead the way. Come on, ladies.
Tight, Libby, but. Island. So. I like this. This is a good spot. No, it does.
Look at Bobby. Thank you.
No, I did want to say, I think I want to make sure that we really pause and understand the significance of the accomplishment of this school. And Superintendent Swaggart is correct. When I went, I was expecting the principal or staff to take me around, but it was the students, and they did an awesome and amazing job. And I think when the day that I came, you all had applied for the Lighthouse certification, but hadn't received it yet or heard back whether you received it from. And so I think it's a significant accomplishment that out of 7,000 schools all over the world, in Rapid City area schools, we have one of those 650 schools who have received this certification. So I want to congratulate you, the staff, and the students of Horace Mann. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
And finally, it is September now, and that means we are a month away from our 100-year birthday celebration at Rapid City High School. And of course, I know that I've talked to the board about this, but Rapid City High School, part of it was built in 1923. And so in October, Rapid City High School on Sunday, October 8th at 2:00 in the afternoon, we'll be having a celebration, a birthday party. And part of that birthday celebration is going to be walking a timeline for the Rapid City Area School District and learning some things about the district. And that is going to kind of set us off on our journey, because in February, we're going to come back together and we're going to have a film festival of short film clips from all the schools in Rapid City area schools that are participating in this. I'm very thankful to the Rapid City Public School Foundation for helping sponsor this work, giving them them some encouragement, but truly a lot of this work is being done by Sarah Gross and Forrest Cooper. I just know him as Forrest Cooper. They have put hours and hours of work into this. This summer, there was a recording project. This is being, the little short movies are going to be narrated by students. They've also been interviewing people with memories from our buildings. I don't know about any of you, but my family graduated from Rapid City Central High School when it was the original building. And every time my mom goes there, she talks about the lockers and all the stairs. And I know that she will be there with me on October 8th. So I'm super excited, but I would invite Sarah up if she has anything to add. Did I miss anything?
We are looking for stories and memorabilia. So on the Public School Foundation's website, there's a link and you can submit a Google form with stories or any old photos. We just got some tumbling photos from the 60s. And so the evolution and change of those grounds is really fascinating. And so any there's another story about a pep assembly that's just joyful. And so we wanna document those and just write them down so that we can share them with students and our community.
There seems to be a dearth of pictures and a lack of pictures from the Dakota middle school years. So if anybody has information or pictures from that time period. Also, there is a Facebook page, the RCAS Facebook page. What is that? 100 years of RC schools, and you can follow and like that page and see the information that they're adding to that. They have lots of pictures of the buildings. They have original pictures. I have learned so much. You look at the first picture we have of Rapid City High School and you think, I do not understand where that building is on our campus. And then you kind of get your bearings and you figure it out. In the picture in the background, that building burned down. So it's really confusing because you think that the picture in the background is the current Rapid City High School, but that building is not there. That was the Coolidge building, and the building that was the original junior high, which is, I think, what we're celebrating, that original part of the building, was 1923. So I encourage all of the board to be there. Surely we'll be happy to put in a quorum notice for that date. There's going to be punch and cake, cupcakes, food, cake, always a good time. So those are our 3 celebrations, and I will be reminding us all as we get closer to October 8th to participate in that.
Right, thank you very much. This time, we'll have persons wishing to address the school board. Before I call the first person, I want to make sure that we go over the guidelines so that we're all on the same page. Issues that affect an individual or particular school should be addressed at the building level, so staff has the opportunity to address issues that affect them directly. Speakers should focus on their main points and not be repetitive. Personnel matters or complaints that directly or indirectly identify an employee shall not be discussed. Such complaints shall be filed in accordance with District Code, KL Public Complaints. An example of this is if somebody gets up and says, I don't think the pastor on the school board is doing a great job. And you may say, well, I didn't call his name. Well, I'm the only pastor on the school board, right? I think that I am. So that indirectly identifies me, and I would have to say something about that, okay? We want to maintain a civil dialogue. Threats and intimidation are not allowed. The chairman, which is me, of the board has the option to stop any speaker and to edit anything that is intimidating or offensive or that deals with a personnel matter. After that being said, our first speaker is Florence Thompson, and you have 5 minutes.
Okie dokie. My name is Florence Thompson. I'm president of South Dakota Parents Involved in Education. I'm also a retired school psychologist with over 40 years experience in the schools. I say now I'm a reformed psychologist, so I have quite changed my philosophy since the past. And what I'm doing tonight is called a blast from the past. And I'm going to show you my t-shirt here. This was Citizens for Academic Transparency, CAT. It was an organization formed here in Rapid City by a couple who had moved here from the San Francisco Bay Area, and they, by way of Colorado, and they had were so concerned about what had been happening in the schools out there in the Bay Area with regards to the LGBT agenda. And so they formed this organization here in Rapid City. And we, at that time, quite a few years ago, 2018, I did address the board about the origins of the philosophy that sprang from the Kinsey report. And this is the whole sexual revolution. And I'm going to have to edit this because the kiddies are still in the room. So I won't, I'll hit you with it at another time. But basically, the Kinsey report was based on Kinsey's research with adults and children. And he did employ pedophiles in his research. And it was very, very abusive. And out of this, he drew conclusions that this was normal sexual behavior. And so the Freudians, everybody picked up on this. This is what was really the basis for the whole sexual revolution in this country and probably across the world as well. We're now looking at a system where we're promoting pornography, we're promoting the early introduction of sexual content to children. And we're also looking at, in the future, the movement to normalize pedophilia, to make this minor attracted persons, it's just another attraction, it's just another identification that people can have or be born with, supposedly. So we're also looking at an administration on the national level that is going to authorize medical treatment for 13-year-olds and up without parent permission and without parent information. And this will enable the schools to bill Medicaid for medical services, counseling services, whatever. They'll be able to bill, or what, I don't know if it's Medicaid specifically, maybe it's Social Security, but they'll be able to bill the feds for these treatments and keep it secret from the parents. So I think the parents need a heads up on what's coming down the pike at their kids, and they need to have their eyes wide open. Thank you very much.
Thank you. This time, Mrs. Sarah Gross.
Hi, Board. My name is Sarah Gross, and I am a parent and a teacher in the school district. And in July, I came and talked to you about how much I love my job. And I thought it was a really cliche later, like teacher loves job in July. And so you may see a recurring theme throughout the year, because I really do. And since we have such a shortage of teachers, I don't know of another way other than speaking publicly about how great my job is. I work at an elementary school and my own kids go to this school. And so a teacher related story today that I will share with you, because it's just, I've been doing a lot of research into schools. And I think one thing I love about it is that kids just don't change that much. And so in one of our third grade rooms today, one of the little boys was putting grasshoppers into his pocket, and his teacher said, no, you leave those outside. So middle of circle time, what happens? The little grasshopper gets out, he catches it right away. And she's like, we're moving on. But I just love it because it's fall in the schools. They can be warm, but they can also be just super fun and memorable. The second part, what I wanted to say this evening was about the reading programs in schools. And this is my 17th year in this as a teacher. I think my 12th in Rapid City. But when I went to school to be an elementary teacher, I was trained on reading records and whole language, and the science of reading has changed things. And so I think I mentioned it last year, and following along with all of the dyslexia work, it's really powerful to think that what we do, and one of the most important things we do is reading. And there's new research that we need to grab onto. And so if you haven't listened to Sold a Story, I think that it has changed some of my thinking from college to today. Being back in the elementary school has also changed it. And I know that there's a training that teachers can do for free. I think they have to sign up by September 19th. I think it's called AIMS. But I just want to take more training in reading and learn how to better help students in my realm, my own children. And so I would encourage anyone listening, because I know board members, you probably aren't going to take the training for free, but a lot of teachers and administrators are listening. And I hope we encourage our staff to, and I know that the Secretary of Education, Dr. Graves, had sent out something recently on the science of reading. And so I would encourage everyone to just tune in and see,
how it fits with your own experience and how it fits with what we're doing in the district now. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, board response to open forum, and if you'll notice, we have a new statement on this agenda item that individual board members' response does not represent the opinion of the entire board. So that'll be new in the upcoming agendas. Any board members have, oh, there we go. The chair recognizes Mr. Berkeley.
Thank you, President Carr. I just wanted to express my disappointment of the connection between the LGBTQ community and pedophilia that has been disavowed time and time again, that those two are not even close to related to the same thing. And affirming our LGBTQ youth is not even close to the same thing as pedophilia, as current research would suggest. Thank you.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Mrs. Thomas.
I wanted to respond to what you had said in your example, President Carr, on what the public or who the public can complain about. I think in terms of elected officials, board members, they can name us, but not staff, superintendent on down. So I think that's okay because we are elected officials, but not obviously staff or complaints at the schools. They can certainly come to
Thank
us
you.
and
Just let
complain.
me clarify. I was just using that as an example of
Right.
how you can indirectly talk about somebody without
Gotcha.
talking about them. And so that spirit of that example is what we're looking at. But
Right.
so thank you.
Yeah.
All right, Chair recognizes Mrs. Clapham.
Just really quickly, a couple of things. One, everyone obviously has the right to speak and speak freely within the realm of our policies. But I would say, when speaking about promoting pornography and pedophilia and talking about our schools, like all of us here, well, are in schools, see what's happening in schools, and I think we just need to speak in facts of what's actually happening in schools. And so to make statements that don't have a basis of fact really isn't beneficial to anybody here. And so I just think it's wise to, they said, speak in fact and factual basis and what is actually happening in our district and in our schools. And the other thing I just wanted to comment that I think it's a real sign of maturity and grace to acknowledge as a teacher that, you know, I'm learning something and I can open my mind to, I was taught this in college and now there is new evidence and new research. And I think that just speaks to the level of educator that we have in this district, that we have people say, you know what, 10 years ago, this was what I learned, but that doesn't mean that that I can't learn something different or a different way. And I'm just really proud of having staff that would be willing to author. And I will say I have listened to all of Solda's story and it is very interesting. And I would be interested to look at the training. So I really appreciate that. They said that level of maturity and academic curiosity.
All right, thank you. Chair recognizes Mrs. Stephenson.
Thank you, Mr. Berkland and Mrs. Clapham for eloquently summarizing what I feel as well in response to the first public comment. And Mrs. Gross, thank you for telling us why you love your job and for being here. I too have listened to Solda's story. I've shared that with so many people. I believe it's time, the science of reading time has come, and I'm very happy that you're going to take courses on that the Department of Education is offering. I encourage all the teachers who have all the extra time in the world to take them as well. But I was very changed as a parent listening to that podcast and was excited that as a board member, I think we have a lot of people who are thinking along the same lines in the district.
All right, thank you. And I would just like to thank Mrs. Gross for being positive about talking about her job. One of the things that the board has talked about doing is instead of doing exit interviews, is doing stay interviews. And stay interviews ask teachers, why did you stay? And it would be the goal of those interviews to build on the positive things that teachers are saying about Rapid City area schools. So thank you for starting off that that program if we ever get to it. Item 8, conflict of interest. Seeing none, we'll go on to item number 9, president point of interest. In my self-study and self-education, I have tried to learn how to be a better board member and board president. And looking into that, I think I mentioned before that I purchased the Robert's Rules of, about the book, don't know what it says. Anyway, Robert's Rules of something. Oh, board, there it is. And in reading those, I would recommend that each board member and the community read that book. It can get complicated. They're in the 12th edition, and so that's the one that I'm referencing. And so I would just like to mention 7 motions that we are allowed to use. Now, we have a policy that says that the board will use the Robert's Rule of Orders as a guide. And so it's not mandatory. It's not, it's not mandatory, but it's a guide. But there's a lot of things in there that I think that would help us. And so there are 7 motions that we can make when we pull an agenda item from the consent agenda. Number 1, we can postpone indefinitely an item, which means we basically don't vote on it and it's dead. We can amend, and Mr. Berkland, I want to apologize to you. This is one of the reasons why I'm talking about this tonight, because we have been kind of skittish about amending motions, but it is something that we can do. And as long as we're not rewriting them, which technically you can do an amendment, you can amend the motion however you want. And so that is something that we can do. We probably should want to make sure we check with our lawyer before we go too deep in the woods. But I just wanted to make sure that I felt that I kind of discouraged that amendment the last time, but we can do that and maybe we'll do that more. Another motion that we can do is we can move the motion to committee. So instead of voting on it, and in the case of the org chart, we could have referred that back to committee or back to administration. Another motion we can make is to postpone definitely or postpone at a certain time a motion. That would have helped me when I abstained from one motion one time to help me kind of know what I was going to vote. If I had known before, I would have motioned on that one. The next one is an interesting one to me too, is that we can move to limit or extend the limits of a debate. Sometimes I think there may be a feeling that we, as board members, that we can talk about a motion as long as we want to talk about it, but there is time limits, and so we can move to limit and or extend the time of a debate. We can move to end debate by moving to the previous question, and we can also lay a motion on the table or postpone it for a specific time. And so those are just some of the things that I learned. I don't know if anybody else cares about it, but I cared about it. But I just want to just make that make those statements that there are different things as we as a board learn how to do our jobs. The next thing that I wanted to talk about is the relation. Oh, the chair recognizes Mrs. Thomas. Thank you.
Thank you. Last year, actually the year before that, some of us had tried to get some training for just like maybe a mock training of the rules, and that would have been something that it fell through the 2 different opportunities that we had, but maybe it's something we can consider for going forward this year.
Yeah, like I said, again, to me, nobody else might care about it, but just knowing and educating myself as to what we said that we're going to use as a guideline, I think is important. Just while we're talking about an interesting fact is that in adjournment, the board president doesn't have to call for a motion to adjourn. If we're at the end of the agenda and there's nothing else and it just says adjournment, then I would be surprised if anybody disagreed with when it's time to adjourn. And so it's kind of a moot point that you don't necessarily need a motion to adjourn. So just some interesting things. Again, in my educating myself about the relationship between the board and the superintendent, I did some more research. I talked to Jessica Filler, who is the Director of Policy and Legal Services for the Associated School Board of South Dakota. And I also conferred with our lawyer. I love saying that. I conferred with our lawyer about the relationship between the board. The board members, you have some of the district policies. We're also going to be talking about this at our retreat. And so I'm not going to go over all these, but for the public, I'm looking at District Code BBAA, District Code BDB, District Code BDD, and District Code BA. So public, you can go to the district's websites and you can look at all those policies that deal with the relationship between the superintendent or the administration and the board. I would though like to read BBAA. It's the board member authority. Because all powers of the board derived from the state statutes are guaranteed or granted in terms of action as a group, individual board members exercise authority over district affairs only as they vote to take action in a legal meeting of the board. An individual board member will have authority to speak or act on behalf of the board only when the board by vote has delegated authority to an individual member. An example of that is before we didn't have a representation on the Associated School Boards of South Dakota. And so we took a vote that I would sit in that position. And if I'm not there, I'd probably ask Jamie or Ms. Stephenson to fulfill that role. That then, when I go to those meetings, I am able to speak on behalf of the board because the board elected for me or my designee. Yeah. For me to be able to speak on behalf of the board because the board voted that would be the case. So that's an example of that. It is contrary to the spirit of the statutes for any board member to individually give orders to any subordinate of the superintendent, either publicly or privately. And it's so important to know our policies because I violated this policy. I was in the office with Bobby, and the board has a website. And so I said, Bobby, could you whatever I asked her to do, and she did it. And I realized after reading this that I wasn't supposed to do that. So I apologize to Superintendent Swagger, please forgive me, Hail Marys, whatever I needed to do. But I think while that's humorous in a sense, it's very important that we know that was procedurally and policy out of order for me or any other board member to ask anybody in administration to do something outside of going to the superintendent and now the business manager. The board will stress to its members, the district staff, and the public that only the board acting as a whole has authority to take official action. Nothing in this policy prohibits a board member from expressing an opinion as an individual, but such should be indicated as personal, not board opinion. Each board member must be committed to reaching and supporting group decisions which represent majority positions. And one of the things too, if you listen to our state statute, and again, I'm not trying to educate the board, I'm just kind of actually giving a school report on what I've learned. And I think it's important for the community to understand that once the 7 of us make a decision by vote, then it's imperative that we all, no matter how we personally feel about that vote, when we publicly speak to people, that we all say the same thing, so that we present to the community, who are our bosses, that we're on the same page. And so that's what this paragraph is talking about. All formal requests for informational reports or administrative actions should be directed to the superintendent, who in turn will place the matter on the board agenda for consideration by the entire board. However, it is understood that informal lines of communication exist to clarify issues. I think that's a very important paragraph for the community to understand, because when you communicate with your area representatives and have a question or want them to do something, all we do is go to the superintendent anyway. And so it would cut out the middleman. If you have any questions, again, that we ask that you start at the building level and work your way up. And then obviously, if it's a question under superintendent's supervision, you go to her, or Mr. Sassy if it's under his department. And so again, I think the overall writing point is that we're all working together. And it came out of all of this came out of a question of mine. What am I supposed to do as a board member? And once we pick the superintendent, that's not all that we have to do. That we're still responsible for the operation of the district. And so if we're smart, we would lean on. I think we've chosen a very good, a wonderful, and awesome superintendent and business manager. And I think as a board, we should lean on them to do the heavy lifting. And I joke with both of them, as long as things are going smooth, we're gonna stay out of your way. We're not gonna micromanage, none of that. But if there's a problem, then we're gonna have a meeting. And so I think that's it's so important, the relationship between the board and the superintendent and the business office. So thank you for that time. Any questions or comments? Okay. The chair recognizes Mrs. Clapham.
Just also for the public, I'm learning, always learning this, that also as a public, when you reach out, recognize that we also have to be careful from a legal standpoint. If the public reaches out to us about some sort of conflict or issue with personnel, or if it ever came to a board hearing, we would then later have to recuse ourselves because we were involved long before in the process. And a lot of people, I think, perceive sometimes if you send an email and say, please contact this person, the reason isn't because we're not listening or we don't hear you or we're trying to blow you off. It's that procedurally, we wouldn't want it, knock on wood, it hasn't happened in a very long time. But if it came to a legal proceeding, that we would then be removed from the decision, and we want to be able to serve you as we were elected to do. And that's something I didn't realize in my first few months on the board. So sometimes I think people may feel an email response or responses, oh, they're just blowing me off, but that's not actually the reason. It's to protect you and to protect us to be able to do our job.
All right, questions, comments? Right, at this time, we're going to item number 10, approval of proposed consent agenda. Is there any items that a member would like pulled?
Yes.
Okay, I heard a yes. Mrs. Thomas?
W.
W. Okay, anything else? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the proposed consent agenda outside of item W.
I'll make a motion.
Deb motions.
I'll second.
What's your name? Jamie. Jamie second. All right. All in the favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. All right, I'll take a motion for W.
So, second.
Okay, Deb and Kate, discussion.
So is this again a request for alcohol at the theater? I'm assuming, I mean, it is, but I thought at one point in time, because of the contracts that we have with them, we wouldn't need to have this on as a request each and every single time, because we don't have a contract with them if we don't allow them to have the alcohol. That's part of the contract, correct? Maybe.
It is part of our agreement, and if we don't abide by it, then we are in violation of our agreement. But I think my understanding is that previously it was asked that we bring it forward so that board members can voice their concern about that agreement as it stands.
Okay.
Okay. Mrs. Sassy, can we clarify? Because I do remember that we were going to do something or look into the contract to see if we didn't have to vote on it every year.
I believe, and I won't speak for Superintendent Swiger, but I believe our opinion is that this would not necessarily have to come before the board. I think the idea was the board in previous circumstances wanted to have input or at least the ability to understand when and how that was happening. But I believe I speak for both of us when we say our belief is that it does not have to come before the board for approval.
Mrs. Baker, I see your hands. And so who puts it then, if it doesn't have to come on, then who puts it on?
You do?
Okay.
Or the administration.
Okay, interesting. Apparently it's the business office. So
See, that's why we all learning. We all.
every day is a learning experience. I will
love this,
find
by
out.
the way. This you can take out on Cole.
I will find out. And those will no longer come to the board unless it is the wish of the board that they continue to.
Well, Mrs. Thomas said it was me, and I knew it was on here, but I didn't know I put it on here. I guess
Well, it,
directly I approve the what goes on here. So, okay, so we need to find out whether it has to be on or not. Does any other board member? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
The chair recognizes Mrs. Baker.
The way I understand it, when we had our meeting, it's the lease agreement, it's in the lease agreement that they have to, so we can't violate the lease agreement no matter if we don't want it or not. So we would have to change that lease agreement the way it, and we have a well-qualified person over there that, but I believe the lease says that we have to do this, and so it is kind of silly that it comes up because we really can't do anything about it anyway.
Agreed. I believe you're 100% correct. The lease agreement clearly states that that they have the ability to do so.
I would have a question though, because we are allowing alcohol over there. If there was an incident or something happened, does our insurance cover that? Whose insurance is covering that then?
Well, I mean, obviously the PAC is carrying their own insurance and liability. We have overriding liability on that as well. So certainly it would be covered. I think the other question in that discussion that happened was also the idea of just knowing when it's going to happen. And so again, I would defer to the board, whatever information you would or would not like. We will make sure we get you if you'd like it more as an informational item as opposed to an action item, which I would agree. It does not make sense as an action item because technically there's no action necessary. But we can make that look however you want. And President Carr will double back and just make sure that that is the case. But I'm 99.99% sure that that is in fact the situation.
Okay, all right, so the chair recognizes Mrs. Thomas.
could we do one of the motions that you mentioned? All
Yes,
right.
actually, we could.
So to take it off or to kill it?
We can, yep, we can postpone indefinitely. Yeah, because it doesn't,
we
it
do
really
that.
doesn't make sense if it's in the lease. So before we do that, let me take, the chair recognizes Mr. Berkeley.
I just wanted to point out that our own policy though, KGAP, is that what it is? Whatever one it says on there. KGPP, does say that we would need to vote on that for our policy. So I think our policy
Is what?
once again, we have, yeah. So maybe we do postpone and get some legal advice, but I do think that our policy says that we have the right to reserve blah, blah, blah. So I don't know if our policy says that. We have to.
Well, we have a subsidiary motion for that. We can move it to policy committee to take a look at it and then bring that back to us.
I will second that motion that you just made.
All right, so we have a motion. Well, we have a second to motion to refer item W to the policy committee. Because there is ambiguity between, our policy is saying that we have to give the permission, I guess, annually. But the, yes, already says that it is, so there's a conflict. So we have a first and second. Any other discussion? The chair recognizes Mrs. Stephenson.
I just worry the first event is September tenth. I hope we could get some clarity to the PAC that as of right now, I mean, I think we can approve this and send it to the policy for the next time. Because we don't want any ambiguity for the Performing Arts Center.
Okay, so this is fun. Here's where we are. We have a motion and second to send it to the committee, send this motion to the committee.
President Carr, who made
Yes.
the second? You made the motion.
I made the motion.
Okay.
Michael
I'm-
made the second.
Okay, thank you.
To refer it to committee. Okay, in that debate, we have a concern of a date issue that they need for us to decide because which is quite interesting because if it's in the lease already, we can't deny it. So they would operate outside of well, and since we can't say no, so we're still good if we send it to committee outside of voting for it. All right, the chair recognizes Mr. Berkland.
Giving Mrs. Stephenson's comment, I would agree. I think that it makes most sense to just send this one and then figure it out between now and December.
Okay, say that again.
I think it makes most sense to just send this one.
Send
Approve
it
it tonight, say yes tonight, and then come back.
Hold a vote. You're saying hold a
Hold
vote
the
tonight.
So I don't know if I can remove my second, but
No, you can't. I'd have to.
I'm gonna
Okay, so
vote no on it when it comes up on-
let's do this. Let's vote on. I know, I love it. I love it. Love. Okay, so let's take a vote on the motion to send this motion to committee. And let's do roll call so we'll be clear. Okay, so is everybody clear what we're voting on right now? Okay,
Troy,
yes.
Jamie,
No.
Christine,
No,
Deb,
Yes.
Kate,
Yes.
Michael?
No.
Pardon me.
No. Is
We
that
have
time?
3 yes and 3 no.
It dies.
Oh, that's right, it dies. Okay, so we go to vote
Bury it now.
on yes or no on motion W. Man, I need some water. All right, let's do roll call.
Troy,
No.
Jamie,
yes,
Christine,
yes,
Deb,
Yes.
Kate,
No.
Michael,
Yes.
motion carries 4 yes, 2 no.
All right. That was exciting. And we learned something. Item number 11. Items for board information. And I think this is this Superintendent Swaggart?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Bishop Carr. Just like last meeting, we have made the decision this year to educate the board on ways that we are spending federal dollars in MOUs and contracts. And here are 3 more ways that we have contracted in our Title I contracts to spend federal money this year. The first one is with Black Hills Special Services Co-op. It is recommended that we contract for professional support for with Black Hills Special Services to support the new the strategic plan and the initiatives and our new federal programs office. So we are blessed to have former federal programs directors employed by Black Hills Co-op, and we would like them to be able to support our work in federal programs this year. So that contract is for that work. And then 2 contracts with South Park. We didn't have those included last time for them to spend their Title I school money on Dakota Steam. We did talk about that a little bit last year, but Dakota Steam is a local company that comes in and does STEAM projects with classrooms of students and allows teachers some planning time while that STEAM work is going on. And then the other is for Lexia Reading, which is a research program that accelerates development of literacy. So those are for information. You'll notice that the ones we had for information at the last meeting were on the consent agenda this meeting. So I will entertain any questions, and I believe Jennifer Strong is on as well, if you would. She's our federal program director, if you have any questions on those.
Okay, the chair will thank you. The chair will recognize Mrs. Clapham.
It's actually just a comment that Dakota Steam, I've been in a couple of our schools that during Dakota Steam, and the kids just absolutely love it. It's really impressive work that they do. They're really engaged. It's really hands-on. I'm excited to see us continuing to support that. It's really valuable.
It is very valuable. They're amazing educators, and we're lucky to have them work in our schools.
Thank you. Chair recognizes Mrs. Stephenson.
Thank you. Superintendent Swigert, this is in regards to the Lexia, but also in regards to the science of reading and in terms of trainings that the district is offering internally. Has there been a shift in how this district approaches reading curriculum? And I ask that just as a board member who's relatively new to the board and wanted an update.
You know, I will second what Sarah Gross said earlier. I have a master's in K-12 literacy. And when I was doing my master's work, it was a lot on balanced literacy, which is in somewhat competition or conflict with the science of reading. I did also listen to the podcast. I have a daughter who's dyslexic, so I've always think that even though I was trained in balanced literacy, I've always really fallen back on phonics and some things that are a staple of the science of reading. We feel confident that our literature reading program that we have aligns with the science of reading. So we don't believe that we have to completely throw everything out and readopt. But I would ask Valerie Seals to speak to that a little bit if she is able. I don't know if she's on tonight. And then the Lexia work it really does get into more the science of reading aspect of the literacy work instead of the balanced literacy piece. But we have been stepping away from that balanced literacy piece for probably at least the last 4 to 5 years.
I heard my name, so I'm here answering questions about what? Doug?
We're talking about the science of reading.
Yes.
Science of reading and this Lexia contract that has been brought forth to work with Title I building South Park.
Yes, absolutely. So my office has been communicating frequently about the science of reading opportunities being put together by the state of South Dakota, and have sent information or forwarded information out to everyone, communicated that, this is a great opportunity for them. In addition, if they weren't interested in that, we have moved away from balanced literacy into a more comprehensive literacy program that includes phonics and phonemic awareness and all of the things that you would want, that of course the state is covering as well. Tara is offering specific grade levels, time and coursework in that area if they choose not to participate with the state. So we're going on with them. The Lexia contract, I do not know anything about.
It was South Park, so it would be through Brad Youngworth and Jennifer Strong. Jennifer, did Mr. Youngworth share anything extra with you on that?
Yes, he did. His team was looking actually at the program called LETRS. It's an acronym LTRS. And the program LETRS is a comprehensive program based on the Big Five of literacy. And the Big Five of literacy are phonemic awareness, phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. And according to the meeting that Dr. Strasser and Val and I sat in on a couple weeks ago, or last week, it feels like a couple weeks, it was last week. Brad Youngworth was on that. Also, him and I had an extensive conversation, and letters actually aligned to the big five of literacy, as well as the Ames reading that the state is rolling out for their trainings that was alluded to earlier this evening, free trainings for our teachers. But the teachers also have the option of, when they go through the training, to also receive graduate credit if they so choose as well, because it is a very rigorous course, very demanding and very high quality. So they can either attend the training for free, or they can attend the training for graduate level. But the Ames reading also aligns to the big five of literacy, as Superintendent Swigert alluded to, and Valerie alluded to, that comprehensive literacy moving in that direction. And Brad Youngworth and his team are seeing tremendous results in their multiple tiers of their tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 in their MTSS and RTI models. So it's a sound research-based model, really addressing literacy to have our students reading fully at grade level by grade 3.
Thank you, Jennifer, for jumping in there. I don't know why I put it together that Lexia is letters training. We've been offering that to groups of our staff in Rapid City area schools for the last 3 years. So we have staff members that have gone through or are going through letters training, either course 1 or course 2, the second year of the training. So sorry, my fault. I think I was distracted here and didn't catch what we were talking about.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Right. This time we'll have committee reports. Ms. Dickinson.
Sure. We had a Rapid City Public School Foundation meeting on August 21st. I took really good notes, and then I didn't summarize them in a way without like just going through bullet points. I will say there are a lot of community members who are interested in helping funding very specific projects in this district, help in paying down lunch account balances, help in building playgrounds, help with our science programs. The important thing, I think, is that tomorrow we are meeting as a board to do the second strategic planning session. My overall impression, being new to the Public School Foundation, I was on it before, but my overall impression is that this is an organization that could do tremendous things for our district and is right on the verge of like just being great for our town and our district, and a very good way for our generous community members to funnel money into specific and not specific projects, and just to support the district in the work that it's doing. One thing that I won't get into too big details on, but the foundation board is thinking about restructuring itself. And if you don't know, the Public School Foundation board is a working board. It has a lot of members, and they all have jobs to do. And they're they're in talks about restructuring the board so it's a little smaller, the board, but then having board members who manage different areas, and then having them have volunteers people who want to help, but maybe don't want to help at the Public School Foundation board level, because it is so much work. We'll have specific projects to work on, and then can get involved, and then later on decide to be a board member. So I think that's pretty much the summary of where we are. And Nicole and Michael, you were there too.
Thank you. Mr. Brooklyn.
Yeah, you covered it pretty well. I know Kara's here, so anything we missed, I'm sure she could tell us. But yeah, just the big thing a big thing I got out of it was the restructuring, and that's something we've been looking at in strategic planning. While I'm at it, my other one was the Performing Arts Center, which thank you for, I should have known when they start. Thank you for bringing that up. Because Adam's Family starts September 22nd. Besides that, it was just annual meeting for that committee. So the usual stuff like that, inducting new members, going over policies. So those are my two.
All right. Thank you very much. But not seeing any more hands, we're going to the superintendent's report. Superintendent Swigert.
Thank you, President Carr. I appreciate the comments earlier that were made about leaning on the board and the relationship. One of the things that I have appreciated so much about my work with all the individual board members is I feel like we do have a good working relationship, and that has led to our ability to I think see great things in our future. So I appreciate that. Obviously, August had a lot of Tuesdays in it, so it's been a hot minute since we had a board meeting. Last time we met, teachers were getting ready to come back to professional development and wrap that work up. That, of course, did happen. Returning teachers had 5 days of training. I want to say that the hard work that when we visited buildings, the hard work going on during those PDs, I think we always are asked why. Why do staff need to come back for 5 days? But just the incredible amount of work that principals put in to prepping the building and that teachers put in. I've heard a lot of really positive comments this year from our staff about the floating PD days, allowing them to dedicate the time during those 5 days before school in prepping for school work and getting to choose when they get to do the online training as opposed to it being shoved into those 5 days, which many of them ended up doing it on their own time anyway, because there's so much that they have to do to get their classrooms ready. So very appreciative of that work. Valerie Seals and I met today again, and when she comes next week for the study session, she's going to talk about some of that training that teachers are doing independently to earn those floating PD days. And so I will appreciate that. We held open houses, and if you're familiar at all with the calendars of the past and open houses, there's always in August this big brouhaha about what schools get open houses when and how people can get to all the open houses when they have kids at multiple levels. And we spent a lot of time discussing that last year as a board and trying to streamline that. And there were no big upsets this year, which is honestly, I think the first time in at least 10 years. As I was an administrator, it always came up. Somebody was always upset. And then we'd have meetings and notices sent out from the assistant superintendent's office about, yes, we really were holding open houses when they were scheduled. And then somebody would want to change. It went so smooth this year. And I just want to thank the board for being part of those discussions early. Remember, we did 2 years of calendars. So when I bring forth the next calendar, it will be for 2 years from now. But if we spend time doing the hard work now, then it goes smoothly. And so that was exciting. We had the district opener. It was very well attended. We had lots of door prizes, including my husband's mini fridge from our garage that I had bought him for a Christmas present that he didn't like. Interestingly enough, he was the second number that we drew. So if he wanted it back, he could have rushed down to the stage and got his refrigerator back, and he did not. We toured, not everybody, but many of us were able to meet the architect and the foreman at South Middle School and tour that property. So much work is being done. We were lucky enough to be there on a day that it was not muddy, but it was very interesting and educational to see how the floor plan is laid out. And I know Coy will agree with me because we have talked about this. This is not our strength. We are not able to apply what we hear about. It's nice to walk it. So it was incredible to walk that. I think we'll have additional opportunities. They're really getting ready to do kind of they'll be putting in the windows and closing the property so that they can start that interior work. We were there the day before they were pouring the cement for the gym, next to the gym, the courtyard, I don't know, part of it.
Yeah.
They were getting ready to pour cement. And it looked like there were some really fun machines that we could have ridden, but they did not invite us back. But just the distance we have come, 57%,
doesn't seem like a lot, but when we have come from tearing down an old gym and the work, just the dirt work in general to get to where we are, I'm so excited. If you ever have a chance to sit down with Jeannie Deming, who has been at South Middle School for a very long time, I think she is the most excited, but some good things are happening there. Senator Hoffman from Sioux Falls reached out. He is bringing a school safety legislation forward, and Matt Sargent and I did an interview with him to let him know how Rapid City area schools would feel about some of the ideas that he is considering adding to that legislation. It is a very challenging task for a legislator to bring forward a school safety bill that encompasses all the different size school districts in South Dakota. But I felt very honored that he reached out and took the time to spend about an hour with Matt Sargent and I. Rapid City Journal has done a really fantastic job covering the school district recently. I appreciate that their coverage of board meetings, study sessions, and taking the time to interview Matt Sargent and other people that we have brought in. So there was a great article about that position in the Journal as well. School started, and in case you're wondering, as of last Friday, we were at 12,590 students. 12,590. We do have a campaign that we're sending out postcards inviting students that we know may be local but not attending due to post-COVID. Maybe they haven't come back after COVID or something like that. So we are trying to get some more students back. Sports have started. So if you want something to do almost every night of the week, except Wednesdays, and Sundays, you can find a sports activity to go to. We have tennis, soccer, golf, volleyball, football, cross country, so many things happening, as well as last year we approved that we added seventh grade football in an attempt to grow and build our football programs. So that is happening as well. So that's very exciting. We appreciate the board's work on that. Interestingly enough, as Bishop Carr talked about stay interviews, and I know that I've asked the director of HR, Gary Manuel, to speak about that work that we're moving forward with stay interviews. I almost think we might have to add return interviews to that, because just today I had 2 different individuals reach out and they have left the district, but are hearing great things and wondered about coming back. So I attribute that to the work that we're doing in this district, but also to the leadership of the board moving us forward. We made some great strides, and people are saying, hey, I want to come back. And we had some teachers resign in May and then even come back before school started. And now we're having more reach out. So I'm thrilled with that. And I'll be talking to Gary about return interviews as well. Those and stay interviews sound pretty exciting to me. We have continued our work in smaller groups with the strategic plan. So the directors and others were divided up, and they've been instructed to have meetings about how they're going to support their pillar as pillar champions. And then we're coming back together to have some additional discussion on that and to move that work forward. So I'm pretty excited about future reports that we'll be able to give the board as pillar champions. This week, joint ventures is all the West River superintendents meet quarterly, and this week I'll be meeting in Spearfish tomorrow with the West River superintendents. We have a very full agenda. It's nice to hear about things that are coming up and to build that network locally so that when we have issues or concerns, if I have a question about CTE expansion or anything like that, but we'll be up in Spearfish. So I hope to get a tour of their CTE center while I'm up there. And then on Thursday, all the large school superintendents have a monthly meeting. So I'll have a chance to connect with some large school superintendents as well. So one of the great things I think about South Dakota is that they work really hard to keep superintendents connected so that we are able to learn from each other and kind of keep up our fingers on the pulse of what is happening in other school districts. So I will make sure and report back to you about those events. And that is all I have tonight. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Superintendent. Any questions for Superintendent Swagger? Before we move on. All right, any others? Chair recognizes Mrs. Clapham.
I'm keeping it brief, I promise. Just kind of want to point out, I know sometimes on the consent agenda it seems through, but I just wanted to kind of applaud us as a district. We have an MOU with a student teacher, which is a new program in the state of having hiring and paying student teachers. Other states around us do that already. And we are working really hard to say, how do we get the great ones and keep them? And so I really applaud administration, our staff, the administrator at the school level who reached out to do this, that we are pioneering. We're using all the creative ways to help with our teacher shortage. And so I said, sometimes these things kind of get breezed over in consent agenda. I didn't want to pull it because there was no need to pull it, but just to say that I appreciate the district is using these new ways, and I'm excited to have a student teacher that hopefully we'll get to keep.
All right, Chair recognizes Mr. Berkland.
Thank you. I didn't know whether to say this on the superintendent report or other, because it was kind of spurred by the calendar discussion. I appreciate that we have 2 years out. One thing that I've been hearing from people is that they want to start after Labor Day and before Memorial Day, and they want their long breaks. And I just wanted to share, we get to choose two. Numerically, the math doesn't work out that we can do all three of those things. So I have heard from various people about which two of those they would like, and I am taking that into consideration, but I did just want to share with the calendar, we cannot make those things legally happen, that we get all three of those. I would love that too, if we could have all three, but tell me which two you want, community.
All right, thank you. Chair recognizes Mrs. Stephenson.
Thank you. Just another note on that South Middle School tour, I was there as well and wanted to let you know, I have had a lot of people reach out to me about the remote learning at the end of this year at South. They have 4 weeks of remote learning, and I really wanted to wrap my mind around why that had to happen. And so I just wanted to report to everybody what I've learned and why I'm comfortable with it. My big question was, what would we have done in 2017 before there was remote learning? Why, well, here's the answer I can come up with. This is what I believe to be true. We have a deadline. Because of the funding for this, we have to have the project completed by September of 2024. So we are doing what would be a 3-year project in 2.5 years. Prior to COVID, prior to 2020, we wouldn't have had this money to build this building. So I wish we did not have to do remote learning, but now that I know that there's a hard deadline and we had to compress a very big, complicated building project into a short amount of time, I feel much better. And I do really feel like the remote learning will be well planned and well instituted. So for those people who have contacted me, I have emailed you as well, but just my public statement about that. The other thing, I kind of mentioned it in the Black Hills Community Foundation, but wanted to say it on a bigger level. It just strikes me that there are a lot of community members in this town who are stepping up to support our schools. And I think that we should acknowledge that too. We have a lot of staff who are helping make our schools better, but we have community members. Sarah Gross doesn't have to do this 100-year project. Craig Mount doesn't, and his wife don't have to support, I think they paid off lunch balances and I think they're doing some playground building. Carrie, you don't have to do the above and beyond work you do with our public school foundation. So I just would like to express my gratitude to the community members who make this district better. We 100% need community members to find their way to help out and to help out. So thank you.
Anything else? The chair doesn't recognize.
Oh,
Okay,
I
see
do want,
hands going
I
up,
do,
going down.
I do want you to recognize me.
You don't want me to
I
recognize?
do want you to.
Now you do.
Thank you.
All right, well, hold on, I haven't yet. Just making sure you want me to recognize you. Okay, the chair recognizes Superintendent Swagger.
I think we should probably keep an ongoing list of all the community members that step up, but we would be remiss if we didn't recognize Black Hills Insurance. They have really stepped up on the lunch situation as well. We have a variety of people, so I will make maybe a note of bringing forth recognition for community members that step up if they want us to. I think that we need to continue to recognize that the school lunch situation is not going away. And we have some ideas. So I was speaking with Kara just briefly earlier, and we'll be coming forth with some ways that we can help support that need. And I know that Coy has also spoken with a senator that's bringing forth a school lunch funding proposal. And one of the things that Coy mentioned to them is that if we just focus on fully paying the reduced lunch portion for families that qualify for the reduced lunch that can't pay even that amount, we would make a huge dent in the amount of unpaid debt that we have at the end of the year. So we're all very aware of this and working hard, but it's so nice to have the community behind us in that work as well.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, seeing no hands, I have two things just for clarity. I won't say it. It was discussed that the policy committee will review policy KGP-P for clarity. And I think probably Mr. Sassy, you'll need to be on there with the lease portion so that you all can figure out what is what for this item. Okay. I was excited to be able to attend the Canyon Lake Pep Assembly. I remember Pep Assemblies in high school, and it was like that. The kids were yelling and they were clapping, they were dancing, they were high-fiving. And so it was just a great atmosphere. So thanks to the staff at Canyon Lake Elementary School for a wonderful Pep Assembly. Okay, seeing no other hands on other, we are now going into executive session SDCL 1-25-2.3, consulting with legal counsel. There will be no decisions or no votes taken at our executive session. Thank you all for coming, and those of you that are listening. I need a motion and a second.
Second.
All right, been motion and second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Thank you.